Thank you all for joining me here today. When I say so, I'm going to ask all of you, even our folks joining us remotely, to close your eyes for 30 seconds. I want you to think about your memories, experiences, and interactions in a library. Ready? Close your eyes. The timer has started. Open your eyes. Now, I know some of you are spread out and do your best, but I'd like you to turn to a person next to you. I'd like you to ask them to share their memory of using or visiting a library. Then, share your memory with them. For those of you joining us remotely, please participate as well. Just think of a memory and say it out loud or tell it to a pet or a human who's nearby. Again, I'll give you 30 seconds. The timer has started. Talk amongst yourselves. All right, the timer is up. 30 seconds is up. Okay, wrap up your conversations. Thank you. I didn't realize people were going to be so chatty. So normally with this crowd, they're not. So, okay, so by a show of hands, who had a positive or inspirational memory? Show of hands, positive or inspirational? Excellent, hands down, thank you. Now by a show of hands, who had a negative memory? Don't be shy, I won't be offended. Anybody have a negative memory? All right, you need to leave. No, I'm just kidding. No, thank you for your honesty, I appreciate it. Okay, so did you see it was most of the room that had positive experiences? Now, if we were to ask people about their experiences with information security, do you think most people would have warm fuzzies? No, right? Librarians and InfoSec professionals have a lot in common. We are both subject matter experts. We both provide knowledge, guidance, instruction. We both understand something that can be confusing or overwhelming at first. So why do libraries rank so favorably and information security so unfavorably? Well, that's what I'm going to try and change. Welcome to Long Overdue, making InfoSec better through library science. I'm Tracy Maleeff. Thank you. So, before I became InfoSec Sherpa, I was Library Sherpa. I have a Master of Library and Information Science degree from the University of Pittsburgh. Go Pitt. I began volunteering at my local library when I was 13 and have worked as an academic, corporate, and law firm librarian before bringing my skills to information security. I'm here today to show you how we can learn from the successes and failures of librarians, libraries, and library science as a discipline to help make information security better, using my unique perspective of having a foot in both worlds. Libraries have been around a lot longer than information security. This is obviously a very brief sampling, but I'm using it to demonstrate how young information security is compared to other professions and industries. We are still growing and changing, and we still have a lot of work to do on ourselves. Now just take a look at that for a second. look how long ago some of the oldest libraries have been, and some of the more quote-unquote modern libraries from the 1700s, some of them are still operational today, like Bodleian Library at Oxford University in England. But information security, I was kind of grasping at straws here. I decided to pick first digital computer, and then you got ARPANET, and then you have Cliff Stoll's book. Look how recent that is. Most of us, the second two, that's in most of our lifetimes. So I want you to understand that I feel this comparison is just because library science has been around for a really long time, and we can learn from them, and we have to remember that we are still a young, growing industry. So, to get everybody up to speed, I'd like to give you a super quick overview of modern library science, and I'm not kidding, this is a super quick overview. So we got Gabriel, first one. French librarian and scholar Gabriel Naudet wrote Advice on Establishing a Library in 1627. And that work is considered to be one of the earliest foundations of librarianship. Next, we found out whatever the hell Thomas Jefferson was doing in Monticello. Pause for obscure Hamilton reference applause break. Anyone? Okay, thank you. He created a classification system for his personal library. Then, in the year 1800, US President John Adams approved an act of Congress, which is considered to be the beginning of the Library of Congress. Quick show of hands, who's been to the Library of Congress in person? Excellent, go. It is so cool. It's really cool. But then, cut to 1814, when those pesky Brits burned down a lot of Washington, D.C. Do we have any British people here right now? Oh, okay. You know what? We're going to have a word later. Okay. Those pesky Brits burned down Washington, D.C., including the books of the fledgling Library of Congress collection. So what did Thomas Jefferson miss? Second pause for Hamilton reference applause break? Okay. No, we'll keep going. He missed nothing. He was on top of it and quote-unquote generously offered to sell his private library collection to the US government. Yes, you heard me correctly, not donate, but sell. In 1815, the US government paid him roughly $500,000 in today's currency, today's value, for about 6,500 books and the information system about his classification system that he devised. Once he did that, his private collection then became the foundation for what we know today as the Library of Congress. And you can see a lot of his original books in the Library of Congress. So this is how we got started with the libraries in America, basically, was Thomas Jefferson collected books, devised his own classification system, and then generously got $500,000 in today's value for that collection. But moving on, I do want to say that yes, I am very well aware that this is a super duper American-centric based timeline, but I am afraid that is what I learned in library school. So if you do want to learn more, I do encourage you to investigate on your own and do some research, but I just wanted to kind of give you a quick snippet to bring you up to speed to where we are today, and I am acknowledging, I know this is very American-centric, so apologies to our non-US folks, you do have your own very robust and strong library histories. Another quick show of hands. Who here has heard of the Dewey Decimal System? Okay. Well, sorry to burst your bubble. I'm glad that you've heard of it, but I want to drop some harsh realities here. He was a jerk. I need to share some harsh realities with you today. Unfortunately, one of the commonalities library science and IT and InfoSec in common is the presence of inappropriate behavior by professionals in the field. Yeah, I went there. Yeah, I did. So yes, while Melville Dewey's classification system did revolutionize library science, it was also very flawed because of Dewey's racist and misogynist opinions, views, worldview, etc. beliefs. Librarians have been working tirelessly as early as 1939 to correct all the racist and other bias that were built into his system. Presently, groups like the American Library Association have been removing Dewey's name from awards and continue to improve upon the long-standing wrongdoings of his classification system. But on a happier note, there are other classification systems that aren't racist and misogynist. So I want to just take a minute to talk about controlled vocabularies in information security. So Dewey's not the only classification system, but I understand why it's the one you're most familiar with because it's prevalent in schools and public libraries. But me as a law firm librarian, I use Library of Congress. So to me, the letter K means law. And I could not tell you what law was in Dewey Decimal because I never had to use it as a professional. But there's some other ones. So the medical librarians and National Library of Medicine, they have MESH that they use. So this is something that I'm very passionate about is that we really need to have, my wish for information security is that we have an industry-wide InfoSec classification system controlled vocabulary. Some of what we use comes from the military, and we've incorporated into our own InfoSec lexicon. But we also have some very unique phrasing that really, in my opinion, should have a ruling on whether or not it should be used. I'm looking at you, thrunting, and smishing. I'm looking at the two of yous, okay? Yes, we have lots of resources, and we publish glossaries defining these terms. But what I feel like we're really lacking in information security is a centralized authority that makes determinations on the validity of phrases. In library science, there's a publication called the RDA, Resource Description and Access. When you catalog a resource, which basically means the application of descriptive metadata for that item, you consult an authority, like the RDA. So my wish for InfoSec is that we need to develop a robust authority for the language that we use. It will be less confusing for users, for professionals, for journalists, for everyone. And please don't be thinking or say to me afterwards, well, why don't you just do it? This is not a one-person job. I think there might be a small group of individuals who contacted me once who is trying to work towards this. This is definitely a committee, an organization, an institutional thing. This is not something a single person can do. You might argue, well, Melville Dewey did it, but he was a racist and misogynist, and he had sole control over the vocabulary, and look where that got us. So we need a diverse group of people to give input and to be an authoritative body to delegate which sort of language we use. And now keep in mind, this is also going to help you communicate better with your stakeholders, right? If you start throwing words around like thrunting and smishing, I really hate those. That's why I'm just going to publicly shame them. Do you think the CFO on the board that you're wanting to approve your security budget is going to understand what you're saying if you're just kind of using slang or words that can't easily be understood or defined? We need to come together on this, and that's something that I really, really want to happen. So I'm putting that out there. All right, now I'd like to get to our main course. In 1924, a librarian and mathematician in India wrote The 5 Laws of Library Science. And I like to keep in mind for the updated interpretation, the word book really goes beyond just a paperback or a hardback. It can mean a digital resource or any other offering that a library may have. Case in point, did you know that many libraries have 3D printers that you can schedule time with at no charge? It's true. You may have to bring your own filament. Is that what it's called? The stuff you put in to make the thing? You may need to bring that. But the machine itself is available to be used for free at many libraries. You can also use gardening tools. You can borrow a rake if you need one. You can borrow household equipment. Libraries are borrowing things, so book really doesn't exist anymore. It's just resource. So in 2022, consider a book to be some sort of resource or tool of any kind. Now, you've had a chance to see here what these 5 laws of library science are. I'm going to go through each one and kind of dive in a little bit further, and I'm going to help draw some correlations here to information security, because I want to emphasize how much we have in common, how much we can learn from them. So let's dig in a little bit to the first one. Books are for use. Resources are for use. How about technology is for use? Apps are for use. Devices are for use. Wherever I see library, I'm going to try to just change this out with a security term. Your security team should be a welcoming environment. Insert chuckles here. Your security should provide easy access and convenience for the users. Do you do that? Do people know how to contact you? Simple as that. Are you squirreled away in a secret room in a building somewhere? Or are you all distributed and nobody knows where the centralized security team is? The primary duty of staff is a curator. Do you know all of the security components, what's going on in your enterprise? Are you working with your IT teams? Are they using insecure software and you don't even know it? Are you curating all the security within your enterprise? Books are for all. Security is for all. Technology is for all. The security team should provide education for every person. Now, you may just think, well, that's just security awareness. Okay, but do you really do a good job with your security awareness? Do you treat it as, as a throwaway thing that people don't care about? Do you mock it? Do you put little value on it? Or do you rather just spend time rolling your eyes and making fun of all the users? The security team needs to be knowledgeable. You need to stay on top of stuff, what's going on in the news. I said this actually to one of my bosses, Chris Krebs, the other day. I said, I tell people all the time, they need to be on top of the breaking news stories, and you should be able, if asked, to translate that into layman's terms, if asked. If you're in front of a board or in front of some sort of governing body that's trying to give you money or give you support for your security team, and you can't explain to them in easy terms what happened with the Colonial Pipeline, then you need to go back and hit the books, as it were, and stay knowledgeable. You need to anticipate the customer's needs. Is there new tech coming out? Is there a new watch coming out? Are there new issues coming out? Are there new attacks coming out? Anticipate the needs of your users. Don't be knee-jerk reactions. Get ahead of it. It'll be so much easier to manage. This last one, if this does not ring any bells inside your head, then I don't know if I can help you. Does access control sound familiar for information security? Libraries have access control too. It just looks different. There just might be books that are behind the desk that are not in circulation. Did you ever go to a library catalog and you'll see something listed as no circ or non-circ? It means you can't take it out because they have access control, because the book may be valuable. It may be stolen a lot. It may be rare. It may be a rare book. There's a lot of times very old books that you can't handle yourself. You have to get a skilled archivist or librarian. We all have access control. Libraries have access control. They've had access control. We have access control. We can learn from them. Every book has a reader. Every security has a user. Every tech has a user. Again, classification system. We really need to get on board as an industry, as a community, getting one common language used. And please, for the love of Jeff, stop coming up with these new marketing terms. Smishing, vishing, squishing, whatever. All it does is confuse the people using the technology. It's phishing. It's phishing. Just call it phishing. That's all it is. Let's give the end users one term to remember and stop dividing it out. I have yet to hear an argument why all these superfluous terms are necessary. If you have one, talk to me later, but I have yet to hear one other than it just causes confusion. And what else do we have? We want awareness, person to person. Do you actually talk to your users? Do you interact with them? A famous story I tell is when I first started as a SOC analyst at a global pharmaceutical company, I replied to a user's email, to which she wrote back, "Oh, there's humans in security? I thought everything was automated." And I turned to my manager at the time and I said, "Don't you talk to anybody? Don't we talk to anybody here? You need to interact with people. They're humans, we're humans. Security at the root of it is a human problem, right? Sure, there's ones and zeros, and sure, there's networks and OSI models and all that stuff. But at the very root of it, it's a human problem. So don't disregard the humans in this equation." And again, education offerings, not only for the users, but for the staff as well. Is the staff up to speed? Are you given some sort of budget to take classes? Is it enough of a budget to take classes? These are really critical issues. And I know a lot of companies feel differently about this, but this is something you really need to stress. Or if you're trying to negotiate for a new job, make sure you get some education credit in there because you need to stay on top of stuff. Otherwise, you're just kind of chasing after things and not really getting ahead of it. And use that terminology if you're getting pushed back. Do you want a security staff who's behind the times, or do you want a security staff who is ahead of the wave? Save time for the readers and the staff. So just kind of like what I was saying before, you need to save time for yourselves to educate, not only educating the users, increase visibility, maybe have a security fair. I know a lot of people love to roll their eyes at me when I say October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Get a cake. People love cake. Have a cake with a lock on it or something. Do something. Make it visible. Make security visible. Make it, we live with it in our lives every day. Don't make it this secret squirrel thing that you can't see, that you can't touch. Make it known to your customers, your users, your employees, whatever you want to call them, that it's a living organism that can grow with their needs, can grow with the problems in the world, and it's something to be celebrated, not feared and not hidden away. Assess readers and understand their needs. So ask questions. Ask them what they know, what they don't know. Why are they doing things? You can do that in a way and not sound condescending. A story that I love to tell is there was a woman who every single day reported the company-wide newsletter as a phish. Every single day. And all my coworkers would just roll their eyes and there's Betty again, and blah, blah, blah. So I finally said, did anybody ask her why she does this? No, they rather complain about it. So I called her one day. Hi, Betty. I'm Tracy from the security team. Just a question for you. These emails that you get, the company-wide newsletter, I said, I see that you report them as a phish every day, and I'm just curious as to why you do that. Her response was, I thought that's what I was supposed to do. So somewhere there was a breakdown in communication or instruction along the way, and rather than rectify it, the team I was on at the time thought it was more fun just to make fun of it. So when I explained to her that, this particular email, is safe, I said, but yes, if you do see something suspicious about it, then report it, but just don't automatically report it because you see it coming into your inbox. So I spent at most maybe 5 minutes of my day kind of going through that with her. Emails disappeared because she was getting the information she needed. She was misdirected. She was misguided. It took 5 minutes out of my life. And also then in the long run caused us less work because what did the team have to do every day? Deal with that email. So I just was beside myself, you need to talk to people. And that's the librarian in me. That, you might want to call that human if you want to be, real InfoSec-y about it. Sometimes you can get an answer just by talking to someone. And I know picking up the phone is anathema to many people. You need to get over it. That's a lot of times how you get to the root of security problems is just by talking to someone. So in the original 5 Laws of Library Science, the line for this was, the library is a growing organism. That was updated to, the library is always changing. What's the only constant in InfoSec? Change, right? I often refer to InfoSec as a Sisyphean task. If you're not familiar with the tale of Sisyphus, it's the person who was doomed to rolling a rock up a hill for the lifetime, for duration of all lifetime. That's kind of what it feels like, right? And yeah, there's a downside, and I'm not trying to all bum us out right now, but there's so many positives we can bring out of that task. We can anticipate threats coming and warn people or batten down the hatches of our network as necessary. Consider the needs of your organization. Do you know that your company's looking to grow in maybe another country or another state or something? Get ahead of that. Do some, easy OSINT or threat intelligence. What sort of challenges might you face if you try to open up a call center in Qatar? Just to throw a country out there, I'm not picking on them. Watch the World Cup this fall. So it's important to plan ahead. Are there going to be layoffs? That could indicate possibly insider threats. And I know that the security team isn't always on top of this, but this is where your person-to-person content and your human come into play. Maybe put the onus on your upper-level bosses. Hey, can you get looped in with HR? I'd like to know if there's maybe a mass layoff coming, because that could really be a problem for us. Or if you start to see a lot of exfiltration of data, maybe run it up the chain. Hey, are we about to let go of a bunch of people? Because I see a lot of people bringing stuff out of the network. Things are always changing, so you need to be on top of it. And if you're familiar with the Ferris Bueller movie, life moves at you fast, right? You need to stay on top of it. All right. Let's take a minute. Deep breath. That was a lot of information I threw at you, right? So now, we looked at, So we looked at how we can apply the 5 laws of library science to InfoSec, but I have a proposal for 5 laws of information security. Let's have at it. So now some of you may be looking at these 5 and me thinking to yourself, well, this isn't anything new. This is what we do now. Great, then you're better than most of the other people in this space. But do you apply this consistently? Is it updated regularly? Are your SOPs and your playbooks updated regularly? Or does one person hold the keys to all the playbooks, and then they leave the company, and then nobody knows how to do it because Bob was the only one who knew how to do that? Don't hoard knowledge. Hoarding knowledge doesn't make you more powerful. Okay? I think a lot of people confuse hoarding of knowledge with power, when all it does is make your enterprise weaker if you don't share that knowledge. So, and then do you actually practice what you preach? Does the security team have one set of rules? Always logging in as admin, but then you're admonishing others for doing the same? So these 5 here are just my suggestion, and this always can be improved upon. But the bottom line is, make sure your information security program has a clearly defined set of purpose and guidance that is adaptable to your users' needs, your team's needs, your organization's needs, and the changing world around us. You may have pages and pages of those SOPs or those playbooks or those guidelines. It might be stored on your intranet, but can people actually find them? Do they know where they are? Have they been updated? Does it reference an outdated version of an iPhone? Do you think anybody's going to take security advice seriously if you're referring to a Zune on your site? And do you have something succinct in layman's terms that people can follow? Sure, you may have more advanced users. Then guess what? Then you can create a second set of instructions. How many times, I know that I've run into this, when you try to discuss security with one of the IT folks who, because they're in IT, think they know as much or more than you, especially me being a woman, in security. Well, they don't, because security is my job, not theirs. So fine, if you need to create a more high-tech level explanation to account for those people, do it. Do it. Don't fight them. They're going to look down on you no matter what. So, you know what? If you want them to be secure, speak to them in their language. If you want the less tech-savvy people to be more secure, speak to them in their language. It's not one size fits all. Library science, information security, growing organisms. You need to grow and morph and change to serve the different needs of the users you have. So what do you think? Thumbs up, thumbs down? Do you think 5 laws of information security could work? Right? Awesome. Any thumbs down? Anybody who wants to huff out of here? You're kind of on the fence. I get it. No, I get you. It's hard. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Okay, thank you. Yes. And the ones that I came up with may not be perfect. I'm just kind of spitballing here, because then goes back to, we need that authoritative body. We need more input. This needs more work, but I'm introducing something brand new here. This is a first draft, but I want you to think about this. And if we can't do this as a community, do it for your own enterprise. Do it for your own organization. But wait, there's more. Okay, One other thing I want to cover is the reference interview. But, spoiler alert, I have given this talk many times, and I am not going to go into it again today because this itself is an hour-long talk. This is actually a slide from one of the early versions of the talk that I've given. So, most notably, I've given this talk, Empathy as a Service to Create a Culture of Security, at DerbyCon 2019. I was one of the speakers at the very last DerbyCon, which, side note, I was stunned when they accepted my talk because I thought that was a very highly technical conference. But as it turns out, highly technical people need to know what empathy is and how to apply it. So I was very pleased how well my talk went over there. And then I was also a keynote speaker for the Diana Initiative in 2020 for this talk. So you can view my full talk, either one, DerbyCon or Diana Initiative, on YouTube. I do have my last slide, I have a link to my link tree, which all my talks will be posted there. Don't watch it now, just watch it later, make some popcorn, it's good. But for those of you who have not seen this talk or heard about the reference interview before, I'm going to go over a quick rundown of what each of these steps means. So this is a 7-step procedure that is often used in libraries called the reference interview as a way to really get to the root of what a user needs, what a user wants. So 1, approachability. Are people in your organization scared to report that they clicked on a fish? Or are they scared to report and scared to approach the security team in general? Guess what? You have an approachability problem and you need to fix it. Now, I'm not saying you go out and you give, hugs and, unicorns and pink bunnies and all that stuff. You don't have to swing the pendulum that way. Be a human. Be empathetic, understand that security is not their job, it's yours, and these things can be very scary and intimidating. You need to have an approachability factor. There's so many stories I could tell you, and I'll just tell you one very quickly, how approachability saved one of the companies I worked for. Somebody from the marketing department said, we're gonna have the CMO of this insert really popular app here talk to our marketing team and of like 200 folks. And I want them all to download their new app that they're going to release so that we can all, make it a good impression on the person, blah, blah, blah. But they were too afraid to submit it to the general security email. So this came to me directly. And I said, let me look into that app for you. Oh, it took me all of like 2 minutes to go, oh, hell no. No, this is a very insecure product and we are not doing this. So, I did not admonish her. I just laid it out to her. I said, look, these are the insecurities. I do not advise this. I really do not want, please do not encourage people to download this. Long story short, I got in trouble for handling something independently, but I made the right call. That's a talk for drinks another time. But I was approachable. I solved a potential problem that could have been huge. We would have had 250 people downloading an insecure product and using it and then probably forgetting about it and leaving that insecure app on the network. And because I was approachable, I was able to nip that in the bud. I still take pride in that even though I got in trouble. Interest, care about your job. If you don't like being in this industry, there's so many other jobs out there. I really have disdain for people with a bad attitude. It really just irritates me. I made a choice to come into InfoSec, okay? I want to be here. I want to help people, and I think you should too. Take an interest in solving the problems, not pushing them aside. I mentioned earlier Betty, right, who just kept submitting the daily wrap-up of the company, blindly because she thought she was supposed to. I took an interest in her problem, solved it, and also gave her some other phishing tips along the way. You'll be surprised how much taking an interest in your users can actually eliminate a lot of the problems you see on your network. Listening. Train yourself to listen for what people don't say. Yes, what they don't say. For example, oftentimes I would have an employee say to me, I got an email, I clicked on a link, it went to this weird looking website, and now I'm calling you. Okay, let's rewind the tape there for a second. So I asked a very pointed question. Well, what happened between you looking at the weird website and you calling me? Oh, well, it asked me to fill in my username and password, and then it didn't do anything, so I called you. Okay, well, your password is now compromised, so I'm glad you called. And did not say those words exactly, but, but why didn't they say that? Either they didn't know it was important because security is my job and not theirs. Maybe they were embarrassed. Maybe they knew they did something wrong and they were too ashamed or didn't know how to phrase it. But again, through approachability and through listening to what they didn't say, I was able to piece together what happened and was very quickly able to block off their account, change the password so we didn't have an issue. You need to understand that a lot of times users don't know what is important to us. So this is why you need to train yourself to listen for what they don't say. And a lot of people have problems, struggle with this, and ask me for assistance. So this is a guideline I can offer you that might help. You know the checklist in your head how to remediate an issue. If you don't know it in your head, then physically, write it down or type it somewhere. Tick off the boxes when they mention things. If there's a box left unticked, that's when you circle back and you ask the specific question to get that box ticked. And it may be nothing. They may just be saying, oh yeah, I just closed it, I didn't do anything. Okay, but they didn't say that. So rather than have an unknown, just ask. Interviewing. So while it's good to be, good at listening, again, circle back and ask those questions in a non-threatening way, non-mocking way. You're not out to humiliate someone. You're there to troubleshoot. Ask specific questions to get the answers you need to fix the problem. And sometimes you do get resistance. One time I knew for a fact that a user had given up his banking username and password because of, the blinky box tools that we have. I was able to clearly see the post request where he was giving up his information on a fake bank site. But he swore up and down that he didn't do it, that he didn't do it, that he didn't do it. And I'm like, I got receipts, dude. Inside my head, I'm saying that. So I left him with all the contact information for his bank. I was like, okay, well, you know what? I think you might want to reach out to your bank. Here's all their legitimate, information. So I get it. I get that not everybody's going to be willing to work with you. Leave them with something that they can do in their power, and then you've done everything you can, and then document, document, document. Searching. I've already mentioned it a bunch lately. OSINT, human. Whatever you need to do to get a second opinion if you're not sure about something, or get help solving a problem. I can't stress this enough. Sometimes a single phone call can solve something. Just another quick story. I always like to have story time. Remember, librarian aspect, we'll do all these little tidbits of story time. I was working late one night. I saw one of the computers in Europe was going nuts, lighting up the enterprise, lighting up the network. And because of the time of day it was over there, I was like, oh, this is sketchy. I looked up who the user was immediately. It was a security guard. Okay, it's probably an overnight security guard. They were downloading a bunch of stuff. Reached out using the company, internal chat system, not getting any answers. It dawns on me, this person might not speak English. So I went to an online translator. The very first sentence was, I am using an online translator, and then proceeded to ask my questions. Response right away in that non-English language. Threw it into the translator. Went back and forth. He was just bored downloading photos. I asked him to stop. He did. He was so sorry. And I then walked him through, using the translator, how to run the antivirus and all that stuff, all these things remotely. Done. I didn't panic. I didn't think this is it, the Russians took over the network. Look into stuff. And then had that thought of, oh, he might not speak English. Do things like that. But also I stress, if you're going to use an online translator, tell the person you're using an online translator, because it doesn't really translate exactly well, and it might look really strange to them, and that might also give them pause. But also that's why I use the internal messaging system. But again, he knew, okay, she's using an online translator. This is why the language looks very strange to me. So answering, what does your correspondence or messages look like to to your consumers? Do you sign off? Do you have a SIG file? Or do they know that they're corresponding with the manager or a SOC analyst? And that's not like an elitist thing, but if you're an end user experiencing a problem, I kind of like to know who I'm dealing with. I know I'm going to make a bad joke here, but yeah, I need to speak to a manager. Well, yeah, because maybe you're not really getting anywhere with someone. And that's a fair assessment. Maybe that analyst doesn't care about their job and maybe isn't doing all these steps that we're talking about today. So, again, how do you tell your internal customers, that you're working on things for them? In my talk, again, I don't want to give too many spoilers because I want you to watch my original talk, but I give a sample of an email that 2 sentences convey 4 very important pieces of information. It acknowledges the person's problem. It told them, when to expect an answer. It acknowledged what the issue was, things like that. So your correspondence doesn't have to be pages and pages long. It just has to be succinct and give information. I know that I, as a customer, would feel so much better having a 2-sentence email that had 4 pieces of information to know, oh, I can expect to hear back from them by the end of the day tomorrow. They know that I reported a suspicious email. They know who I am. I know who I'm talking to. That would put me at ease. And then follow up. Are these solutions you put into place actually working? No, I don't expect you to follow up with every single Betty in your organization, but can you just tell by looking at your logs? Are things that you put in place working? Are you still having the same amount of false positives or all other indicators? Are these things working? Do you really check up on this? Or if you do have an individual frequent flyer who always contacts security, do you check up with them periodically? Those things are important because some people might need a little extra hand-holding. And yes, some of those people might be executives, okay? If you have an executive who travels around the world a lot, are they going to different countries? It's like, oh, have we scanned your phone since you got back from Vietnam? We should probably do that. Are you following up on things? This is another way that you can, get ahead of potential problems and really nip them in the bud through follow-up. So, I'm going to start to wrap this up now. So, what did we learn today? We can learn from library science that there are so many applicable lessons and failures to be learned, but let's talk about the lessons and the positives. Raise your quick show of hands. Do you feel like you've learned something new today that you can apply to information security? You feel like you've learned something? Excellent. There's a lot we can learn. There's still more we can learn. Please go back and watch my Empathy as a Service to create a culture of security. Like I said, that whole talk is just about the reference interview, and I go in a lot deeper with that. We could really use 5 laws of information security as a guideline. We could really use a standard vocabulary. These are things we need to work towards as an industry and as a community. And just look at all these things that we went through today. And yes, I'll figure out how to get my slides posted. But use the reference interview techniques to adapt them to your particular situation. I know it's not one size fits all. Remember, the library and security is a growing organism. Change them as you need to, but have some guidelines in mind. At the very root of it, security is human-centric, and we need to think about it that way. That's what the library did. The library knows that it's dependent upon users. They keep all kinds of stats about their circulation and who comes through the door and all that stuff, because that's how they get their money a lot of times, based on grants. So think of it that way. You need to think of the human element, how you can improve security. So I kind of already asked this already, but just last show of hands. Everybody feel good about this? You feel like library science can help us in the future? Everybody feel good? Excellent. All right, you've been a fantastic audience. Thank you very much. I'm Tracy Maleeff, InfoSec Sherpa. You can see my talks and articles and things like that on my link tree. Thanks for coming. And I'm happy to take questions and whatnot. Yes, in the back. Can you come to the mic? I'm sorry, it's really hard to hear.
So in my field, there's a term which isn't relevant, but translating the term from a technical definition for people who are working in the space to a non-technical definition for executives and policy people, it is a big disconnect in what they actually end up hearing. Like they don't understand. They are thinking one thing and we're thinking a completely different thing. What's the best way to reconcile the fact that the technical definitions?
I mean, how big of an organization are we talking? Is it something that you can actually have like face-to-face meetings or?
Too big.
Too big. Okay. Can you have? Do you have a carved out piece on the intranet that people can go to where you can establish these explanations and terms and like make a big deal about drawing people to it?
There's a lot of competing people, but they're all trying to explain it to executives, and the executives are like, "We got it," and you're like, "You didn't get it."
Is there somebody at the company who has an authority to oversee like language and stuff like that? Sorry, I don't have all the answers.
I know. This is a thing of like the community as a whole has this problem.
Yeah.
It's at every single company. It's at like government's got by making.
I'm probably going to have to ruminate on this a little bit.
Yeah,
I apologize. I don't have an answer off the top of my head. But if you want to like maybe just like tweet that question at me, I can give it some thought. Maybe like write a blog post about it or something. Thank you. Sorry, I couldn't answer off the top of my head, but I don't have all the answers. So thanks for coming. Okay.
Are you going to be out in the hallway for questions?
Yeah, sure. I can, especially if there's another speaker coming, I can get out of here.
All right. Okay, so if you have any other questions, we're going to be getting another speaker going, but Tracy's going to be out in the hallway. If you have anything, thank you so much for coming. Thank you to our sponsors as well, and have a good day.